Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. If you are new to my channel, my name is Stephanie. I am a life and relationship coach. I am super excited about this week's topic because we're going to talk about overthinking and being a worry wart and thinking too much about something and letting that negative tape just run until it basically causes us complete stress, fear, and anxiety. So I want to get into not just overthinking, but more specifically why someone who is highly sensitive tends to be an overthinker. And then I want to give you some tips at the very end to help you to stop overthinking so much. And these are things that you definitely want to listen for because they are really powerful things that really do help you, not just with overthinking, but also managing your emotional state. Now, before we get into anything, if you have not yet subscribed, don't forget to click on the subscribe button down below and click on post notifications. This will inform you every time I do upload a new video with a brand new topic. But let's get into this week's video. So I'm not going to get into all of the traits that make someone highly sensitive because if you're watching this video, chances are you're highly sensitive and you know that you are highly sensitive. But what I do want to stress with someone who is highly sensitive is one of the main things that makes us this way is our depth of processing. And what this means is we take in stimuli and we process it on a deeper level than most people. So you might be going about your day and you smell something or you see something or you hear something, but you are different than other people in the sense that your nervous system is wired differently for you to really smell it, to see it, to hear it. So you hear it deeper than most people. So that's why someone who's highly sensitive doesn't really love loud noises, or they can hear it to a point where it really disturbs them, whereas maybe someone else could kind of hear it and it wouldn't affect them as much. You're also someone who is highly empathetic and tends to be a perfectionist. This isn't all, highly sensitive people, but most of them really are. Because of that tendency to process things deeply, you think really deeply. And I'm going to get into kind of how your mind works and why you do think on these deep levels, because I think it's important to understand the why before you can begin to kind of change a little bit of what you normally have been doing to help you cope in life, basically with, the way you are made up. Now, with someone who's highly sensitive, you're also someone who's empathetic. Just to touch on a few things, you're also someone who's empathetic, highly empathetic. You tend to be a perfectionist, and you tend to think about the decisions that you're making probably to a point where you're overthinking them, and because you don't want to make a bad decision, right? You want to basically make the best decision possible. Now, with this depth of processing, right? This deep level of processing, with someone who's being an empath, with someone who's being a perfectionist, with someone who tends to just, overthink any decision that they make from time to time. With all of these things combined, you are already programmed to be a little bit of a worrier. It doesn't mean that your depth of processing and the way you take in information means that you're going to be an overthinker, but it is a great stepping stone for someone who could kind of tiptoe into that overthinking, worrying too much, stressing about all these things that don't need to be thought of in this moment in time. And creating this level of anxiety inside of you. Now, unfortunately, because our society still doesn't know too much about it, we're way more educated on someone who is highly sensitive than we were even 10 years ago or definitely 20 years ago. But because most of us grew up in environments where our parents and the people around us didn't really know that we were highly sensitive, and we didn't really know that we were highly sensitive. At times, we might have even thought something was wrong with us. We weren't taught how to kind of cope with the way our brains work, the way our bodies work, the way we take in information, and how it is different than other people. So now, because of all of that, we are overthinkers. We go from 0 to 60 and we process things over and over again, and we stew in something, and it affects us on such a deeper level than most people. And there are so many beautiful traits to being someone who's highly sensitive, but there are a lot of things that we have to learn how to kind of deal with and cope with so we can have a good life, right? So we don't have all of this stress, all of this anxiety, all of this worry. We're not carrying this huge load of worry and stress that we don't really need to be carrying from day to day. So I want to get into a little bit of how our minds, our brains work and how it's different from other people. And I think this is really important, especially if you have a child who is highly sensitive, to teach them why they are the way they are and how their nervous system works, how their minds work. To me, it kind of helps you to feel less like the outcast and more of an understanding of like, okay, this is how I'm different. It would be no different if you were born and you had diabetes, or if you were born with some other trait that you had to learn how to cope with, because majority of society doesn't have this trait. So in our brains, we have something called the limbic system. And the limbic system basically controls your emotions, it controls your memory, and it controls stimulation. Now within your limbic system, you have all of these different kind of subparts, and there's 4 subparts. You have the thalamus, the cerebrum, the hypothalamus, and the amygdala. So we all have these 4 subparts. We're gonna go into the thalamus first. So the thalamus takes in information like sight, smell, and it takes all of that information that you're getting and it communicates it with the cerebrum. The cerebrum takes that information from the thalamus and it processes it, and then it tells your body what to do. So say for example, you smelt smoke. That's going to be coming from your thalamus. Okay, you're gonna smell the smoke, then it's gonna communicate that to your cerebrum, and your cerebrum is gonna say, let's walk and move away from the smoke. The hypothalamus is basically, and these are all very general statements that I'm making, right? I'm not gonna get way deep into like every component of your mind. I just wanna give you a basic understanding of how your mind works. So within the limbic system, you have your thalamus, and your thalamus is responsible for sending these little messengers out into your body called hormones. The primary job of the hypothalamus, is to create a balance of hormones within your body. So this part maintains things like your sleep cycle, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your body temperature, your energy levels, your appetite. I mean, this part really affects a lot of things within your body because, like I said, it's trying to create that hormone balance within your body. And if you're a woman, you'll know at times your hormones are not really in balance. So this is the part of your brain that's basically affecting those things. Now, the amygdala is really important in psychology and mental health because this is the part of your brain that basically controls your emotions. So it controls your anger, your fear, your sadness, your happiness. So this part of your brain, the limbic system, with all of these components, this is the emotional side of your brain. And now when I talk a lot about, learning how to love yourself and how to control your emotional state and all of those types of things, self-parenting, I talk a lot about your emotional side versus your logical side. So this is the emotional side to your brain. The amygdala also, since it collects emotion, it's going to collect fear, it's going to collect happiness, it's going to collect joy, all of those things, it's going to collect the emotion. It also is going to link that emotion that you're feeling to the event that's currently happening. And that creates a memory, it can create the trauma. So that's where all of this stuff actually begins to happen. So it's going to store that memory based on the event that's happening and the emotion that you felt when it happened. And so then it just almost recycles itself. So it's going to reiterate that, hey, when I did this, I was really scared. And the next time you do it, you're going to feel scared again. So that's why those things happen within your brain. Now, like I said, the limbic system is, just to be simple with all of this, right? I'm not going to get into the depths of it, is the emotional side to you. We obviously have a logical cognitive side, but I'm not going to get into that. What's important to understand with this side of your body is each of these subparts within the limbic system, for you, because you're highly sensitive, are more active than the normal person. So you have more activity on the emotional side of your brain than you do the logical side. And that's why people tend to call us over emotional, too sensitive, etc., because we are. That's not something that we should be offended by or get, defensive on. That really is the truth. But unfortunately, the way it's being presented to us is in a negative way. And that's why I feel like sometimes someone who is highly sensitive or empathetic will tend to get offended when someone tells them that they're too sensitive or they're too emotional. So since we have an overactive amygdala, for example, your nervous system is going to be wired for sensitivity. That just is. So a lot of people who are highly sensitive are sensitive to pain. That's me. I'm definitely sensitive to pain. You're sensitive to sight. You're sensitive to sound. You're sensitive to touch sometimes, right? If something's too hot for you or too cold for me, if I run my hands under cold water, it can't be absolutely freezing because I almost can't even take it. So your nervous system is wired for those sensitivities. So you're going to continue to overthink if, number one, you don't understand how your mind works, and number two, how to basically stop yourself from, it's going to be natural for you to that part of the brain to just always be triggered. You're not going to be able to shut that off. That's why you are highly sensitive. That's why you are wired the way you are. But here's how I'm going to give you some tips on how to begin to kind of, I don't want to say heal that part of you, because you can't. It's going to continue to happen, but to recognize when it happens and start taking different action towards feeling good. So number one, first thing you have to do is self-awareness. You have to know these things about yourself. You have to know that you're highly sensitive. You have to know that this is how my brain works. Most people do. Most people aren't able to watch the news. Most people aren't able to watch certain movies because it really affects them. And days later, they could still feel depressed because they saw something on TV that really happened to someone. So knowing yourself very, very well and having self-awareness to know, okay, here I go, I'm going down a rabbit hole on something, and being able to kind of pull yourself away from the hole before you get too deep into something, that's just, honestly, that's just you taking care of yourself. That's just self-love right there. That's self-care, and it's something that you have to do. That's you being the adult to yourself and taking control of your mind when your mind wants to just run ragged. I don't think people realize the power of just acknowledging, okay, I'm in this state. Okay, I'm overthinking. Okay, I'm using more emotion versus logic. The minute you bring that self-awareness to the forefront, you have now stopped programming, stopped habitual thinking, and brought consciousness to the table. And the minute you bring consciousness to the table, you get to choose, okay, what direction do I want to go now? Because I can keep going down this rabbit hole, or I can take a different route, because the goal is I want to feel good. I don't want to create a problem that doesn't even exist. So it literally is a practice to be able to recognize, practice that self-awareness to recognize, okay, here we go, here's the thought, and now I'm engaging too much in it, and I don't need to be, because in this moment in time, I don't need to think about anything other than where I am right now. That right there in itself is a huge thing to start practicing, quite frankly, for anyone, not just someone who's highly sensitive. But then being able to take it the next step further and say, okay, because that thought's going to want to pull you back, and it's going to want to seem believable, and recognizing that sometimes we're almost addicted to the pain of overthinking. When you're thinking about something that's causing you pain, and you should stop, and you're aware of it, and you're telling yourself, okay, I'm going to stop now. I don't need to be thinking about this. And there's a part of you that goes, let's just indulge just a little bit more in that crappy place of overthinking about this. And that's basically where you're just inflicting more pain upon yourself, right? And so you have to have that self-awareness and that discipline to say, no, the goal is I don't want to create something that doesn't exist right now. My goal is I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to feel good. And if I'm telling myself something that, number one, isn't happening in this moment, so I don't need to think about it, being able to have that discipline and work that mental muscle to stop yourself takes practice. It absolutely does, but it's something that you can start doing right away. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight as to why you are an overthinker and help you to begin to kind of stop that cycle and begin a new cycle, really just to take care of yourself. So if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next week.